Hello, welcome to the October episode of Here's the Stitch. We've got a couple of different things to share with you today. I will of course be showing you what I've been working on, some finished objects. Yep, objects. And then my current work in progress, because that is down to just one. And then some fun things I picked up at DFW. So we will have that for you today. And then, so all of that will be in the first segment here. And then the next two segments are going to be talking about the history of Socktober. And then in the final segment, Dax will come on and share a little bit about what it was like to create this Socktober colorway for this year. And then talk about how you can participate in Socktober. So yeah, let's get started. First things first, finished objects. I finished pressed flowers. I did not finish it in time for DFW, so it was hanging in the DFW booth on the needles. When things would slow down a little bit, I would take it down and work on it, and then when things got busy again, I would hopefully be at the end of the row and it would get stuck back up there. So Brian became quite the expert of hanging this while it was still on the needles. As you can see, it's enormous. It is as long as my wingspan. It's ginormous. It's also very tall and it's so squishy. I cannot wait for it to be cool enough to wear this. Maybe this weekend at Indie Untangled. Maybe not. The weather is saying it'll probably be in the mid-60s. So, but yeah. So this is my pressed flowers. It is out of our brand new base Chantilly, which is a DK fluff. That is the white. And then the color changing yarn is our Lottie. And we do have kits for this. This kit's on the website, I think. Pretty sure this kit's on the website. And then we will have these at Indie Untangled, and then we will also have them with us at SAF. So we did get in a brand new batch of Lottie. I will say this batch is very different. It's not as heavy on the pink and the teal, similar to our teal feather. It's got a lot more variation in the color, and it's gorgeous. So yeah, that is on our website, and then again, I'll have it at Indie and I'll have it at SAF. So I finished this after we got back from DFW. I didn't even manage to finish it on the way home. But yeah, it is done, and it can go in the pile of things to go to Indy next week. Next thing I finished was some homework. So this is our skein of Socktober. It's called Spook-o-lantern. This was the colorway we designed this year. And we first launched it, and nobody seemed excited about it, which I thought was really odd because it's absolutely gorgeous. So I decided to work up some swatches with it. So I made a granny square swatch using it. Granny squares are the extent of my crochet abilities. And then I also did a knit swatch using it. So super pretty. You can see that you get these little micro stripes. It's kind of becoming Dax's signature for Dax designing colorways. So yeah, and then when you crochet with it, at least in the form of granny square, you get these nice big chunks of color, which is super fun. So those were my next obligation knitting. And then the last piece of obligation knitting that I have finished, I actually can't show you, but it is right here. And it is this tall. I don't have a regular gnome handy. We are making kits for the December mystery gnome with Imagine Landscapes. And Sarah had requested that a couple of dyers do some DK kits. So we have done DK kits. But to ensure yardage, because that was something Sarah wasn't positive on, she asked that we knit the gnome. So I have Nandad, the Christmas gnome, in DK weight yarn, sitting here on my desk. And he is, I do have it. He is taller than my 1 foot ruler. That's all I can tell you. That is all I will tell you. We will have kits for him. I think we've got 3 different kits planned up, and Dax is going to get started on those next week, and they will be available for order, I believe, the first week of November. Not 100% sure on that, but so yeah, there's a little spoiler about the Christmas gnome that doesn't really tell you anything. So that was my last finished object. My only work in progress is I have gone back to my flock sweater. This will be my sweater for India Untangled, I hope. Notice the sleeve and then the small amount of sleeve. I also realized last night that I didn't do both decreases. We'll see. We'll see if I go back. The pattern only has short sleeves in it, so I am actually knitting at the same gauge that I knit my sheep camp and also my DRK everyday sweater. So I'm going to go back and look at the sleeves for both of those and kind of wing it on sleeves for this sweater. If I was just doing the pattern, I'd be done. Like, I think this is all that there is for the sleeves. But I do want it long sleeves. And then I did pick out this little sheepy is going to be the one that becomes black. I am going to duplicate stitch with some black yarn. So we will also have kits for this at India Untangled. We've got kits for this red version, and then we also have somewhat modified kits for the teal version that Neutrino did. So little inside baseball. We're doing some changes of some of the Lada colors starting next year, and one of the colors that's going to get a facelift will be ballet slipper. So we didn't want to dye any more ballet slipper petites, so we've modified the sheep colors in the kits we'll have at India Untangled, but they're gorgeous. So they're teal feather, they're sundrop, they're paloma instead of Sunset Beach, and then it is thistle instead of the ballet slipper. So they're beautiful, and you will end up with amazing sweaters. So that is my only work in progress. Hopefully, maybe, I will have a finished sweater for the booth Friday at India Untangled. The neckline is currently fine if I don't have time to go back and do the collar, but I have intentions of going back and doing the collar. So I am using one of our super skeins. It is still rather large, like for scale, I guess. It's still really big, and all I have left is the sleeves. So, and I am doing I think I'm doing roughly the 40-inch size. I don't know exactly what it is. So with the 4 skeins, the super skein, I should have plenty of yarn to do the long sleeves. So that's it. That's it for like projects. Things have of course been busy around here, getting ready for Indie Untangled next weekend and then SAF the following weekend. So what you can't see behind me is lots of buckets of yarn that need to be twisted and tagged and things in the drying room and all of that. But yeah, let's backtrack to DFW. We ended up having a really good show. Brian and I drove further than we had intended on Wednesday, so our drive Thursday was much easier. We only had a couple hours to do, so I think we left the hotel around 9, and we stopped in Ruston, Louisiana. And part of our, traveling is checking out college campuses. So we drove through the campus of Louisiana Tech. Wasn't quite what I expected. It felt more community college than like major university. Certainly didn't feel anything like driving around Notre Dame, for example, that I did this spring. Or even Auburn. So it's not a major campus like that. It's a little more intimate with the city of Ruston, and overall just not a very big university. So, but we checked that out, and then yeah, we got to DFW on Thursday, got all set up, had a nice big beautiful double booth that felt really good. Brian and I had made some tweaks to the booth layout that we really like. So we're going to stick with those kind of tweaks going forward. So the booth at SAF will look very similar to our booth at DFW. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I did do a little bit of shopping at DFW. The first thing I bought was a new coffee mug. But yeah, last year at DFW, Brian had got me a coffee mug from a local potter that has become my favorite mug. If that mug is in the cabinet, it is what I grab. And it's a beautiful blue color, and this year they had orange ones. So of course I got one. So that was like my big splurge. Pottery has gotten really expensive, but it, much like what we do, it is handcrafted. It is small batch, and the maker of that is certainly worthy of those prices. But yeah, it kind of hurts a little bit. But I love it. I love that mug. The only yarn I got, I actually didn't purchase. I did a little trade. And I do not remember her name. But she's Euphoria Knits out of Colorado. She stopped into the booth during setup on Thursday and absolutely loved our neon sign. So her and Brian geeked out over neon sign conversation for a good bit. And she fell in love with our Lottie. So I went to her booth on Sunday and poked around and found these 2 skeins of undyed beautiful Shetland. They're gorgeous. I actually have, I think it's Shetland. I'm almost positive it's Shetland. I have a beautiful sweater quantity of Shetland for color work. It's like a minty green, a blue, a teal. It is from the Carolina Fiber Frolic from probably 8 years ago. So this would be really, really beautiful with that. But yeah, So we did a little Tracy's, and it is, the colorway is Oat number 2. So I'm going to guess this is a second batch. It's a sport weight, 100 grams, 398 yards, and it's a 2-ply, and it's beautiful. So that was my tradesies. And then next to us, we had a unique booth. We had a small game company. So their name is the Woolly Pelican. They are a small game designer and producer. So they had, I want to say like 6 or 8 different games that they had for sale that they were demoing. And yeah, obviously, like, we weren't even sharing a wall. Like, we had a 3-foot piece of pipe and drape, so we could very much chat with them. And I am going on a big vacation in November that is going to include a lot of sea time. So I was looking for a game that we could bring with us that would be something easy that, you know, 2 couples can play while on a cruise ship. And one of the things I really like about the company is they're 2 gentlemen that run the company, and their wives are both knitters, which was their connection to being at DFW. So all of their games are meant to be able to be played with 2 couples. The 2 guys are obviously much more into the game aspect of it than the wives. So the guys play all 4 play the games, but the wives also knit. So that was a big seller. So I actually picked up this game. It's called Blind Mouse Bluff. I think it was like $10. It's a pack of like playing card kind of things. And I vaguely learned how to play. And basically you are trying to earn cheese. What I also really liked about this company, and I can't remember the gentleman who we literally talked to all weekend. I want to say his name was Bob, but that does not feel right. But yeah, so he does all of the illustrations. And so yeah, there are 4 cats. Cats chase off mice. They all have fun little stories. So these are the cats. And then, so cats chase off the mice, and the mice eat cheese. So again, all of the mice have their own quirky little characters and kind of story about them. And then the goal of the game is to get as much cheese as you can. So cheese is worth different point values. So this just absolutely made me laugh. But the government cheese is worth 0 points. There's several 1-point cheeses: American, mozzarella, Munster, provolone, ricotta, and yeah, super fun. And then you've got 2-point cheeses: Asiago, feta, Gouda, Havarti, Parmesan, Brie, cheddar, Fontina, Gorgonzola, and Swiss. So yeah, so I picked that up for our cruise, and it will be hopefully a fun little game that we can all play together. So that's it for finished objects, knitting, and acquisitions. So yeah, let's move on to segment 2. For the ease of editing for Claire, we're just going to keep rolling here. So yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about Socktober. For those of you who have known me for years, I'm sure there's several of you watching this who know me going back to my years of doing the Carolina Fiber Girls podcast with my friend Anne. I want to say we started that back in like 2014. I'm going to say 14. And then Kristen and I opened Queen City Yarn in 2016. And then it was probably maybe a year into or probably about a year into Queen City Yarn, that Anna and I continued to do the podcast together. But then it just became too much. So the Carolina Fiber Girls podcast may still be out there somewhere on the podcast platforms. But we don't maintain the site for it anymore. So yeah. But anyways, when Anna and I had the podcast, we would always host a knit along in October that we called Socktober. We didn't invent Socktober. Socktober has been a thing in October for years now where knitters knit socks. Some people do it as a way to fill their sock drawer. Some people do it as a way to make gifts for the gift giving season that's coming up. Some people use it to do, their fun seasonal socks, a pair of Halloween socks, a pair of Christmas socks, whatever you may be into. So yeah, it's a fun time to kind of rally around and knit socks in the month of October amongst your sock knitting friends. You can, of course, crochet socks as well. Actually, during our DFW, Tony Lipsy was signing her book across from us. That was Crochet Socks. I think it's called Crochet Socks My Way. So yeah. Bringing back Socktober was something we wanted to do this year in kind of a different way. So obviously, Dax created the Socktober colorway this year, the Spook-o-lantern. And yeah, just trying to kind of, without diving headfirst back into Socktober, participate this year. I have not cast on a pair of socks as much as I would love to. I just don't knit socks the way I used to. So yeah, that's kind of where Socktober is with knitters. Socktober actually started, I think it dates back to like 2010, maybe even earlier than that. But socks are actually the least donated item to shelters. Yet they are a very highly requested item for people living in shelters. So the founder of Socktober, let's see if I can find their name real quick. Brad. In October of 2011, creator Brad Montague. So Brad started this whole Socktober thing as a way to collect socks for local shelters. So Dax in the next segment is going to chat a little bit about where you could kind of go back to the Socktober roots and make a donation in that way, as well as talk about a little bit about how you can move on from some of your knitted items, your handmade items, in a way that could help other folks. So, yeah, Dax is going to touch on a bunch of that, but really just wanted to share a little bit of the history of Socktober and why it came about. So, something that is easy to participate in and is super fun, especially if you're participating in knitting along with some friends and doing some socks. So one of my favorite memories from SAF years ago was when Anne and I were hosting Socktober. one year we made it a competition, and I think every year it was a competition. But anyways, I have a photo of Kristen, her mom, and then our friend Peggy standing outside of SAF knitting on their socks. And that year the winner came down to Kristen and Peggy, and I don't remember how many pairs of socks they knit. Maybe Kristen can drop it in the comments on the podcast here. But yes, there were a lot of socks, and it was a very, very fun competition that the two of them really kind of spearheaded. It was fun. So that's all I've got. So in the next segment, you will be joined by Dax to learn a little bit about how you can participate in Socktober by donating socks and handmade items to those in need. So I will see you next month. We will have a podcast again in November. Somehow we'll make it work. And hopefully I will see you at India Entangled and SAF in the next couple of weeks. And then following that, we will be at a local show in Durham at Freeman's Creative. We'll be there, or Dax and Ryan will be there on November 8th. So, and that'll round out our year of traveling, just for it to pick up again the end of January. So, yeah, that's all I've got. Have a great month.
Hi, friends. I'm back again today, and I'm here to talk to you about Spook-o-lantern, our newest color for the spooky season. Janice asked if I would talk a little bit about my development process, kind of like we did last month, and kind of what some of the ideas and inspiration that I came up with in order to get you this beautiful color. So Spook-o-lantern is a hand paint. If you haven't seen it, here she is. Gorgeous. We got some really dark purple, some lighter, brighter areas, some pumpkin-y orange, some very, pretty, almost yellow kind of spaces between the orange and the white, which I was really happy about. It really encompasses, what I was thinking about for this time of year. Here's another good look. As you can see, it creates this really beautiful micro striping. And we had the pleasure of having one of our fellow knitters, Jill, or Nitsitsu, knit us up some fun socks in lovely Spook-o-lantern. And you can really see the micro striping there as well. I was very happy about that. Here's another version that Janice was nice enough to knit up for us for a little sample. I was really happy about how this came out. My big thing, for whatever reason, I had purple and orange stuck in my head. Purple is one of my favorite colors, so I am always down to try to incorporate that into something. And orange happens to be Janice's favorite color, so it's kind of like the melding of our two favorite colors into one thing. And I think it really came out really nice. It has really great contrast. And still holds up on its own as far as like we talked about before, the striping with the different colors. But I also feel like you could really hold it together with other colors as well. We will be selling Spook-o-lantern at India Entangled, and as well as SAF when we're going to be there. So, and I will not be at India Entangled, but Janice will. But I will be at SEF. So come and see me. Come and check out Spook-o-lantern. Find a fun pattern for it. Yeah. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hello again, friends. I'm here to talk to you about donating your knits. Janice and I decided that this month would be a great month to start talking about donating knits for people and animals in need. It's that time of year again where things are getting a little chilly, and people are going to be spending a lot of time indoors. And also there are people in our communities in need. So we are going to talk about donating our time and our knitting to those who need them. Especially for those of you who love to just knit, and then don't always have time to wear them, or you just starting to stock up on too many items. So I did a little research for you guys, and I have found that donating your items is not always the easiest thing to do. But thankfully, I have put together a little guide for you with some help of some other people, lovely people on the internet, who also were like, this process isn't as easy as I thought. So here we go. We're going to go through that. So what I found was this lovely human put together this website called Knitting for Charity, and they have a little comprehensive guide on things you should know about knitting for charity. Charity, so like homeless individuals, or if you're knitting for like shelters or things like that, this is kind of a guide for that. So they start off by letting you know that, not everything that comes off the needles can be donated. It's important to know what the guidelines are. A lot of shelters will give you guidelines for that. It's pretty comprehensive. A lot of times they need hats, arm warmers, scarves, blankets, that sort of thing. A lot of shelters need items, but then there are a lot of individuals who Emily Hope's Hats for Hope. She's based in New Jersey, and she takes donated hats, and they can be passed out to homeless individuals. So there are also people like that, individuals who are also doing this, that you can check out and find. There are organizations like Knit the Rainbow that take donations, knitted item donations, and you can either mail them in or you can drop them off at a location. And wouldn't you know, one of our very own, Andrew from Briar Patch Co., is a donation drop-off zone. So if you're up in Hendersonville and you want to knit up some stuff to send off to Knit the Rainbow, you can hand them off to Andrew and he can mail them out for you. But yeah, so things like that are very helpful. Our own Charlotte Craft Guild also has a list of people that need donations. Some of them being Children's Cancer Partners, who take knitted blankets, and Bundles for Babies, who take hats and blankets. There are quite a few organizations on there if you're interested in that kind of knitting. And then you can also do knitting for domestic violence shelters. A lot of them will take knitted items. What I will say is something that the Knitting for Charity website mentions is that when you're knitting for there's a big difference between knitting for individuals who are still currently facing houselessness, who are living somewhere not sheltered. A lot of the time, things to think about with the difference between those individuals and individuals in actual shelters is that individuals who are still living out on the street may be more interested in muted colors, warmer, hypoallergenic yarns. So think like wool, mostly wool based items. Are probably going to be best because they tend to be warmer and trap in more heat. And like I said, plainer items. Emily's hats had a quote in the Knitting for Charities article about how most individuals were interested in dark, like black, or dark brown knitted items, something that will not show dirt or will keep them in a lower profile, which is understandable. And then versus people living in shelters might be a little bit more open up to brighter colors. They might have access to more traditional washing, machine washing and things like that. And so they're a little bit more varied in what exactly you might be knitting up for them. There's also, like I mentioned, domestic violence shelters and housing assisting shelters, just things of color and comfort that we take for granted, that people really miss. And then there are also animal shelters that you can donate for. I know there's a lot of animal lovers in the knitting community. Dogs and cats need blankets and things as well. And so a lot of animal shelters also take knitted item donations. Again, check with each individual shelter in order to get the best fit for that shelter's needs, and what they might be interested in. But yeah. I'm also going to be putting together a couple of posts about this, as well as posts about where to be finding yarn in this crazy, crazy time. As you know, you can always find yarn with Queen City Yarn, but there will be information about other places that you can find as well in case you're in need of your yarn fix. And, the box stores and things just aren't doing it for you or aren't carrying what you need. But yeah, thank you for talking with me, guys, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your month.